What's up guys, it's Bastian here coming at you with another introduction to Gundam War deck profile, and today we are covering Earth Federation. That's right, we're going into the color of blue. And last time, if you guys checked out the Crossbone Vanguard deck profile, this is kind of a continuation of that. Not trying to build the most competitive deck, but trying to build a deck that you could give to a friend or somebody who's interested in the game and just kind of give it a go. Nothing too complicated, but enough to have fun with. So jumping right into the unit cards, as I usually do, we are starting with one of my favorite units, the GM. The GM is fantastic. I love the design, the image on the card. I love that it's a 2/02. Just comes down, wreaks a bit of havoc. Fantastic card. I think any color should have access to a unit that is a 2/02 and comes down on the first turn. Most colors do, not all of them unfortunately, but then some have more than one, like white. Anyway, we're starting out with 3 GMs. This is a good early sort of lead unit to get in with strike points. Then we got 2 copies of Ball. That's right, we gotta have Ball in there. And what's particularly good about Ball is the fact that whenever it gets destroyed, you can just pay 1 and it returns to its owner's hand, returns to your hand, doesn't cost anything to play it, and it's a nice little 1 shooting point. So by turn 1, turn 2, turn 3, if nothing else, you can always swing in for 3 in space. Only that Ball can only go to space. That's the only little drawback there. We do have a good defense line on Earth as well. We have 2 copies of Jabro. Can only go to Earth. It's a base unit, but it has a chunky defense value of 6. It comes into play in reroll status, so that's pretty cool. You slap it down, you've kind of protected on Earth for the first few turns of the game. And when this card and its set on card is in the station area, they cannot be the target of your opponent's card effects. So what we're going to be using Jabro for is actually, it is going to be one of our main draw engines, because we've got 2 copies of Preparation for counterattack, and this can only go to a unit with base. Jabro is a base, and in your assign phase you can tap these 2, roll them, and you draw a card, which is fantastic, because this is kind of like a late game draw engine, but it does ensure that you do have cards in your hand in the later parts of the game too. Yes, it doesn't come down before you got 4 generations in play, but because Jabro is protected in your station area, at least you can make some good use of it late game as well. Early game, good defense on Earth, perhaps late game good just to keep refueling your hands. This is actually 2 of our operation cards that I'm just kind of mentioning here whilst we are looking at Jabra. Okay, back to the units. 3 copies of Gun Tank. Now I must mention the errata on this card. You can only use its effect in the resolution step that costs you 0. If this is not in the front of the team, then it can give 1 damage to an opponent's unit card battling against this card. So you have to have something like a GM in the front, and then you can use this. Basically, it can shoot anybody that you're attacking against. Giving you a 0/2/2. It can go to the front of the team, but then it won't be able to use attack, and you will need something to boost its strike points. So that's not what we're using the gun tanks for. We're using them for shooting points, and we're using it for its 1 damage to any opponent's units battling against this card. A nice little 2 cost. Turn 2 ideally if we get the 2 generators by turn 2. Rocking 3 copies of Jigen. This is actually a fantastic card, and it's just one of those things again. I wish every color, just like the GM, had a copy of a Jigen-like card. When you play it, at the end of the turn, you draw cards. So you play, it replaces itself. Of course, red has also got the Gyrodoga that does that for you. And of course, green has quite a few cards that when you play them, they draw you a card. Dop, for example, or Gattle does that. But anyway, Jigen here is just another way to kind of further our agenda, draw a little bit of extra cards. Goes hand in hand with Preparation to counterattack. Besides that, it's a 2/1/3, so it's a reasonable unit, and it can go to either Earth or space, so it's pretty good. And again, it's gonna be one of our sort of mid-game, late game front units to perhaps replace the GMs if they get taken out. Introduction to battleship cards. We are running the classic white base. We're not really going to take any particular use out of the auto A effect. We don't really have many new type cards in the deck, but it can be useful. What really we want to get in here is just a unit that can supply our other units in this battleship, so it can be played on top of your usual unit for the turn. And then we have a Gundam Mark II. It is not a deck in blue if you're not running at least one Gundam card in your deck. So we got Mark II. It's a vanilla. That's fine. We just want a slightly beefier front unit with the three strike point value. This is a prime example for that. But the main card and what we kind of want to curve into is A.E.U.G. It's a 4-2-3. Yes, it is a vanilla, but it's a strong vanilla unit with that 4-2-3 stat line. And so you could have situations where you got like A.E.U.G, white base, Gundam, you swing in for 7. You can also use gun tank, so in effect you're dealing 8 damage to your opponent's units, and then you can take white base and supply these two. They will also be able to then defend during your opponent's turn. So can have nice little tricks like these. These units actually work together pretty well. So this is it for our unit cards. And now we're gonna go and look at the characters that we have in store for you. So I did say we're not going to take too much use of that new type shenanigan, but we do have a little bit. But that's not our first character. We have Kate Bush to start with. She can come down the very first turn. So, but if you can start with a GM, turn 2 you can put a Kate. Well, turn 1 you could put a Kate on it, but you might not want to give your opponent a 2-for-1 situation there. So wait for that GM to be rerolled, put a Kate on it, and you can immediately swing for 3. We don't really care about Kate's effect. We're not going to be using it, but in case at any point you can spend 1, send the same set group unit cards and then a set on cards, including this card, to the junkyard that negate the destruction of one of your cards except unit cards. So it can stop one of your operations, one of your generations, or one of your characters from being destroyed. But then you have to sack Kate and the unit she's on. Now, if she's on a ball for whatever reason, then of course you can still pay the 1 and return the ball into your hand, then you're only losing Kate. It can be useful, but it is a bit of a fringe ability, and so we're not going to be using it all the time. The only new type we have in the deck is 2 copies of Quest Pariah. I think this card is quite underrated, and blue generally doesn't have many cards, and especially no rares really, that gives you 2 shooting points on a character. By the way, we've got no rare cards in this deck, I must emphasize, and also that was the case for the red deck as well, so you don't have to go and invest in rare cards specifically. You can build these decks out of commons and uncommons. Anyway, the drawback, well, the advantage of Quest is she can come down turn 2, and it gives you actually a very beefy upgrade. Make sure you put her on the gun tank, because obviously battleship cards can only be buffed by units who actually have the battleship booster effect. She can also go into Jabro. I don't know if she adds her values to base cards, but she's very good on ball. She's very good on gun tank as well. Gives you a few options. Or you can even beef up perhaps a A.E.U.G, make it a 4, put it behind the gun tank, then you can swing for 7 still. That's a nice little option potentially as well. But the drawback with such an powerful early drop card is the fact that if your opponent plays a male adult new type card, then Quest and the unit she's on goes immediately under your opponent's control in reroll status. The likelihood of that happening is very low early game, and the reason for that being is, well, the only adult new types, we got 1 in black, which is Paptimus. We have 2 in red. We've got 1 in blue, 2 in white. We've got none in brown, and we have 1 in blue, which is the adult more array. So there really are 6 maybe I've listed, 6 maybe 7. I might have missed one. Altogether in the entire game we have 7 cards that would actually be able to steal Quest Pariah, and also if you're running this in like sort of these intro decks, then there's almost no chance that that's going to happen. Two of these cards that I've listed are ultra rare from set 3, very rare to come by anyway. That's the Adultimore Array, and that's the Neo Zeon Char. So Quest is in there, and we have Kate Bush, so we got 2 female characters here. And so we are opting to run 2 copies of Oliver Ito. He's a 1/1/1, so he's also good on lead units, he's also good on support units. But what he does, all your character cards with a female designation in the battle area as this card get +1 defense point until the end of the turn. So just kind of gives our ladies here a little bit more defense, gives them a little bit more beef, and so you kind of want to make sure Oliver attacks with your more fragile character just to make sure, but there's a little bit of a synergy there, obviously, making sure that you got a little bit more defense points on the ladies. Alrighty, now moving on, I'm just going to collect these cards, and I'm going to go into the command cards and then go to the operation cards. So command card wise, we are running 1 copy of Strategic Victory, destroy 1 operation card. Now blue has access to 2 separate cards that can destroy operation cards, so it's fair to put at least 1 in the deck, so that is the Strategic Victory. We've got 2 copies of Provisional Armistice. At any point in time, battle damage to your nation pile is negated for this turn. So play it before the end of the resolution phase, or even, well, before the end of the resolution phase, and then you're not going to take any battle damage that turn. We got 3 copies of Lack of Zeon Soldiers. At any point in time you can reroll 1 card. This is particularly good early game. You can have a very explosive first turn if you got Lack of Zeon Soldiers, if you've got a GM, and if you've got as I said, you've got a Kate Bush. If you got all these 3, turn 1 you can swing in for 3 straight off the bat, which can be quite powerful, especially if you can then maintain this early sort of aggro attitude for the deck. It does have an aggro feel to it. And then into our operations, I did talk about the 2 preparations to counterattack. It's our main late game draw engine. We do have 2 copies of support from Guerrillas. Any point in time, 0 cost per use, roll 1 of your generation cards to give 1 of your unit cards +1 defense points until the end of the turn. The effect cannot be duplicated. So you can do this for as many units you have, but only once, because you can't duplicate it on a 1 unit card. That's what that means. But again, it's just a little bit more defense value, and it can be nice. It can work together really well with Gloom in the front. Well, all your unit cards can defend even in roll status. So we kind of make sure we kind of get in for early damage, and then later we can just pretty much sit back and defend, make sure that their early advantage doesn't disappear through the high defense of our units, and we can just carry on blocking as needed. And then of course finally we've got our generation cards. We're running 14 in this particular deck just to make sure that we always see them. I would normally say that for a deck that goes up to kind of like total generator cost need of 4, I recommend running about 14. Some of the decks where you got a lot of draw power or scry power, like red for example, the previous video, you can get away with a little bit less because you can kind of go through so many stuff that allows you to rearrange the top of your deck. You can maybe run less than 14, 13, even 12 could be good enough. If you build a deck where you really want to go up to until 3, then you probably are okay with 12 generators as well. But that's kind of rough estimates. I do base this on, you know, having had, I don't know, 30, 40 games now, but that tends to work for me. But as with any game where you have mana, you can get mana screwed, and you will be mana screwed, so please don't come back and blame me. Anyway, thanks for tuning in this time, and I hope you've enjoyed this intro deck for the Earth Federation this time. Make sure you tune in for the upcoming videos as well. If you haven't subbed yet, please do so. It really does help me out. Leave a like below and leave a comment to discuss your thoughts about this deck as well. Up until next time, Bastian signing out. Peace.